All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So, yesterday was such a big day, such an exciting day for Jets fans. We heard Aaron Glenn speak, we heard Darren Mougey speak, we heard Woody Johnson speak. Just feels like there's a lot of positivity surrounding this team right now, and I really cannot wait to get into draft talk and free agent talk, all that good stuff. But we heard from Mike Tannenbaum. He detailed the search, right? What went into the New York Jets making the final determination with Darren Mougey and, of course, Aaron Glenn here. And I found it really cool, really fascinating. So let's dive into his answer. And by the way, shout out to Rick Cimini of ESPN for providing the answer here on Twitter. I'll leave it linked down below in the description box. But anyway, Cimini goes on to say, speaking of his role, Mike Tannenbaum called it a data-driven approach. The in-season firings of Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas gave them a quote-unquote huge head start in collecting info. They studied 30 years of data, league-wide trends for hiring. In vetting candidates, they went so far to speak to agents of players who got cut by candidates. They also spoke to countless staff members. There was an emphasis on leadership ability as opposed to X's and O's acumen. I mean, that is exactly what I wanted to hear. Like, that's why you bring in the 33rd team. That's why you bring in two former general managers, again, in Tannenbaum and Spielman, to head this thing up and assist Woody Johnson and Chris Johnson into making this decision. What's really, really cool is, I felt like in the weeks of while we were sitting in the coaching carousel, trying to keep track of all the interviews, the reports, the rumors, all these different, things happening, the one thing that we were saying here on the channel, it was we need to find a culture changer. We need to find just that leader who can step in and just grab the organization by the horns and just drag it in the right direction. Not someone who's going to be pushed around and bullied. And look, Aaron Glenn hasn't even coached in a game yet, but you could see those leadership qualities at the podium. You can see those leadership qualities in past press conferences, past interviews, listening to how players, former coaches talk about Aaron Glenn. And that's just so cool, right? And it looks like the 33rd team kind of had that same idea, right? We need the best leader to come in and change the fortune of this franchise, just like what happened in Detroit. So love it. Let's move on. In regards to new general manager Darren Mougey, in quotes, when people survive ownership changes, typically there's something special about them. Denver had 3 ownership changes, with Tannenbaum noting that Mougey's responsibilities increased after each one. Head coach Aaron Glenn, quote unquote, checked every box. He paid his dues every step of the way. One thing that impressed them with Glenn was the belief that he can build a strong staff. He's a person that people want to go work for. Tannenbaum believes the Jets got it right with both hires because of character, intelligence, and experience. One thing that we hear all the time is hiring someone maybe a year early so you get that candidate in the mix, right? They can crank out their learning curve or their rookie mistakes. And if you feel really, really good about a candidate, if a candidate has a lot of interest around the league, chances are, they're going to be getting a general manager or a head coaching job at some point. And Darren Mougey was kind of considered someone like that, right? Like next cycle, there was like Darren Mougey was kind of one of these up and coming guys that you just kind of felt like in 2026 he was going to be like a top 3 candidate, and that's what initially kind of drove my interest in the first place, right? Someone who worked his way up through the Denver Broncos over the 12 years, assistant general manager, former player, at only 39 years old. You don't just luck your way into that, especially with an organization that's so tightly knit like the Denver Broncos. This is not an organization that will just give the job out to anyone. George Payton's running the show. Sean Payton, a strong personality, head coach. Like, you have to be effective in this style of role in that specific organization. There's some organizations that, maybe it's not as high pressure. Maybe there's not as many responsibilities. But this Denver Broncos job was, that's a sweet gig. And again, to earn that spot within that Broncos front office at 39 years old is pretty remarkable. And as Cimini and Tannenbaum point out here, he did survive the 3 ownership changes, which if you have a new regime coming, if you have a new owner coming in, yeah, chances are they want to shake things up and kind of bring in their own guys or go make their own hires. right? So if you have a guy that's constantly in the building, constantly working his way up, that says something. And so I'm excited to see how Mougey handles this offseason, free agency, how he handles the draft, how he handles the quarterback position, how he handles the offensive line, rounding out the depth of this roster. You kind of feel like Aaron Glenn is going to have a massive voice. He was, initially the first candidate that was hired here. Again, this is why you hire the 33rd team. This is why you bring in two former experienced general managers. If we ask ourselves realistically, would Woody Johnson and Chris Johnson be going to the lengths? Would they be walking to the ends of the earth like these guys did in the search? Talking to countless staff members, talking to agents of players that got cut to kind of see how those situations went. Would there be that self-awareness there to say, hey, you know what? The culture here is at an all-time low. It sucks. We need someone to come in and try to flip the script. Would those questions, be answered positively? And I would say probably not. So kudos to Woody Johnson for bringing these guys in. Kudos to Woody and Chris for, spending the money, adding the consultants, because, and look, again, who knows how Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey are going to do. I'm personally feeling pretty positive, feeling pretty good about the whole thing. So, I don't want to make it out to sound like Aaron Glenn has won the Super Bowl and he's coming in with 3 rings or anything, crazy like that. Of course, we have to look at everything objectively. But again, you do get the sense that Aaron Glenn was a hot candidate. Interview with Jacksonville, interview with the Saints, the Bears, the Raiders, the Jets, clearly, right? There was the Patriots requested to interview him. He declined it. If it wasn't going to be the Jets, it was going to be someone else. His time was now, and the Jets landed him. And it's pretty clear that maybe outside of Mike Vrabel, Aaron Glenn, out of all the general managers, out of all the head coaches, Aaron Glenn was the top choice. Like if you just compile all the names into one list, it's probably Mike Vrabel 1, Aaron Glenn 2. But that, there's still a question mark there because, the whole Mike Vrabel thing got wrapped up before the Jets spoke to Aaron Glenn. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. And as always, go Jets.